6 months after the divorce, I was a ghost of myself. The apartment felt too big, too empty without Sarah. My sister, Lauren, insisted I needed to get away, somewhere to reset. "You need to disappear for a while," she said, pushing a brochure across the table. It showed a rustic A-frame cabin nestled in the Adirondacks. No Wi-Fi, no neighbors, just quiet. I booked it for 2 weeks without thinking twice. The drive took hours longer than expected. Snow had been falling since we left the highway, and by the time we reached the turnoff for Black Hollow Road, the world outside was a blur of white. The GPS had lost signal miles back, and the handwritten directions from the host were barely legible. "Are you sure this is the right way?" Lauren asked, gripping the dashboard as the tires slid on black ice. I didn't answer. The trees pressed in closer, their branches scraping against the car like skeletal fingers. Finally, we saw it, the cabin, older than the photo suggested, its wooden siding weathered gray with age. A single motion-activated light flickered above the door, casting long shadows across the snow-covered porch. The key was hidden under a rock, just as the host had instructed. As we stepped inside, Lauren nudged me. "Look." On the kitchen counter sat a small wooden box. No note, no markings. Inside was a single, rusted hunting knife. Lauren frowned. "Weird housewarming gift." We spent the evening in comfortable silence, drinking whiskey and watching the storm. The cabin was colder than expected. Drafts seeped through the old logs, but the fire kept us warm. Around midnight, I heard it, a faint tap-tap-tap against the glass. I glanced at Lauren, but she was already asleep, probably just a branch. I got up to check anyway. The snow outside was undisturbed. No footprints, no broken limbs. Then I saw it, a face pressed against the window. Gone in a blink. The next morning, I found them. Not animal tracks, boot prints. Large, spaced evenly, as if someone had walked slowly around the entire cabin. Lauren shrugged. Maybe the host stopped by. But the snow had started falling before we arrived. These prints were fresh, and they didn't lead to the cabin. They led away into the woods. The axe slipped from my numb fingers, thudding into the snow. My breath came in ragged clouds as I stared at the figure between the trees. He hadn't moved since I first noticed him 10 minutes ago. Just watching. "Hello?" My voice cracked. The wind swallowed the word. The scarf covering his face fluttered. I caught a glimpse of something underneath, not skin, but what looked like old, yellowed newspaper pressed against flesh. His eyes. God, his eyes were too wide, the whites visible all around dark pupils that didn't reflect the fading light. Then he moved. Not toward me, but his head tilted at an impossible angle, like a broken doll's. The gloved hand came away from the tree with a wet, tearing sound, leaving behind ragged strips of bark. In his other hand, I saw what he'd been holding, a knife. My knife, the one from the box. A sound escaped my throat. The figure's head snapped back upright. Slowly, deliberately, he raised the knife and drew it across his scarf-covered mouth in a grotesque parody of a zipping motion. The trees behind him rustled. Shapes moved in the gathering dark, more of them. I didn't wait to find out. I ran, the axe forgotten, my boots slipping in the snow. Behind me, I heard it, a dry, rattling laugh that didn't sound human at all. We turned the cabin upside down. Pillows slashed open, mattress flipped, every drawer yanked from its casing. The knife was gone. "Maybe you misplaced it," Lauren said, but her voice shook. She kept glancing at the windows. Then we saw the door. Not just unlatched, the deadbolt had been turned from the inside. And on the handle, 5 perfect fingerprints in something dark and sticky. I touched one, still wet. A thump from the porch made us both jump. Then another, and another, regular, methodical, like someone, or something, was circling the cabin. Lauren grabbed my arm. "The box," she whispered. The wooden gift box now sat in a puddle of water that hadn't been there before. As we watched, a single drop fell from its edge, staining the countertop pink. From outside, the thumping stopped. Silence. Then a new sound, fingernails dragging slowly down the outside of the front door. The lights flickered. When they came back on, something had been slipped beneath the door, a scrap of newspaper, the edges browned with age. A child's drawing in crayon showed a stick figure standing over two others in bed. The caption read in shaky letters, "I always watch you sleep." The knocking started at exactly 3:17 a.m. Not random tapping, a deliberate pattern. Knock, 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 knock. Like some grotesque game of hide-and-seek. The walls actually flexed with each impact, old timber groaning under pressure. Lauren clutched my arms so tight I felt her nails through my sweater. "That's not wind," she breathed. The voice came again, louder this time, seeming to emanate from all directions at once. "You took it, and now we want it back." The temperature plummeted so fast our breath turned to fog. The fire in the hearth didn't just die, it screamed, a high-pitched wail as the flames contorted into grasping hands before being snuffed out. Something heavy landed on the roof with a thud that shook dust from the rafters. Then another, and another, like multiple creatures crawling across the shingles. The voice whispered directly into my ear, rancid breath hot against my skin, "We're coming in now." Every window in the cabin exploded inward simultaneously. We didn't stop to grab coats, didn't think to take the car, just ran blindly into the screaming storm, the snow so deep it reached our thighs in places. Behind us, the cabin's roof collapsed with a sound like breaking bones. Lauren screamed as we hit the tree line. The figures were everywhere now, standing perfectly still between the pines, their newspaper-covered faces tracking our every movement. They didn't chase, they just appeared ahead of us whenever we changed direction. I risked a glance back. The thing from the tree line stood in the center of the path, its scarf unwound to reveal a mouth stitched shut with coarse black thread. It held the missing knife in one hand and something small and red in the other, Lauren's discarded mitten, dripping. Then they all moved at once, not running, gliding. Their feet never quite touched the snow. The one with the knife raised its free hand and made a gesture like turning a key. Every tree around us shivered, its branches lowering like prison bars. From the darkness came a sound that defied nature, 100 mouths humming the same tuneless lullaby through stitched lips. Lauren sobbed as we stumbled into a clearing. The abandoned trapper's cabin stood before us, its doorway yawning like a hungry mouth. Inside, the walls began to bleed. The moment we crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind us with finality. The air smelled of copper and spoiled meat, so thick I could taste it. Lauren gagged as our flashlight revealed the walls, not just studded with knives, but breathing. The rusted blades moved rhythmically, like they'd been plunged into something alive. Those look like surgical tools," Lauren whispered, pointing to a collection of bloody bone saws arranged neatly on a rotting table. A wet plop made us look up. Thick black droplets fell from the ceiling, forming words on the floor. "He found you first," then the whispering started, not from outside, but from inside the walls. Dozens of voices murmuring in unison. "He gifts the knife, watches you take it, waits for you to bleed." Something scraped against the outside logs, then another, and another, circling. The final drop fell, forming one last word, "Run." The police found us at dawn, curled together in a frozen ditch miles from any road. They said we were lucky to be alive. They lied. The cabin we described didn't appear on any maps. The host we'd rented from didn't exist. And when they went to investigate, they found only an overgrown foundation stone, the moss covering it undisturbed for decades. But here's what they didn't tell us. The officer who took our statement disappeared that night. They found his patrol car running, door open, radio still crackling. His notebook lay on the seat, last entry reading, "The stitches are coming loose." My hospital discharge papers included a strange addendum. a crude drawing of an A-frame cabin with the words, "See you next winter," scrawled beneath it. Lauren woke yesterday to find her pillowcase stuffed with decaying newspaper. When she unfolded it, a single rusted knife fell out, along with a lock of hair that matched hers exactly. And this morning, I found the first snowflake of the season melting on my windowsill. Outside, barely visible in the frost, someone had drawn a smiley face, in blood. The Blackwood Forest had always been a place of mystery. Locals told stories of disappearances, of hunters who ventured too deep and never returned. Our family's hunting cabin stood at the edge of those woods, a relic from my grandfather's youth. It had been years since anyone had stayed there, years since the last time my sister Lily and I had played hide-and-seek among its creaking floorboards. When Grandpa passed away, leaving the cabin to my father, we decided to clean it out one last time before selling it. The drive up the mountain was quiet, the trees pressing in on either side of the narrow dirt road. Lily, now 16, sat beside me in the back seat, her nose pressed against the window. "Remember when we used to pretend it was haunted?" she said, grinning. I laughed, but the joke fell flat as we pulled up to the property. The cabin looked smaller than I remembered, its wooden siding gray with age, the roof sagging under the weight of years of neglect. The front porch steps groaned under our weight as we climbed them, and Dad fumbled with the rusted key in the lock. The door swung open with a reluctant creak, revealing a dark interior thick with dust. The air inside was stale, carrying the faint scent of mildew and something else, something metallic, like old blood. Dad flipped the light switch. Nothing happened. "Power's out," he muttered, shaking his flashlight until it flickered to life. The beam cut through the gloom, illuminating motes of dust swirling in the air. That's when we heard it, a faint scratching from upstairs. Lily's hand shot out, gripping my arm. "Did you hear that?" Dad sighed. "Probably just a squirrel." But his voice lacked conviction. We moved cautiously through the cabin, our footsteps echoing in the silence. The living room was frozen in time, a moth-eaten couch, a coffee table stacked with decades-old magazines, a layer of dust coating everything. Lily was the one who found the note. It was nailed to the attic door at the top of the stairs, the paper brittle with age. "Do not open. It watches." The handwriting was Grandpa's, but the letters were jagged, as if written in a hurry, or fear. Dad scoffed. "Probably one of Grandpa's jokes. You know how he loved scaring us." He tore the note down and crumpled it in his fist. But as he reached for the attic doorknob, the scratching grew louder. Something moving inside, something big. Then, silence. Lily took a step back. "Maybe we should listen to the note." Dad shook his head. "It's just an old house making noises." He turned the knob. The door didn't budge. Locked. From the other side, something let out a slow, rattling breath. Dad eventually found the attic key in a kitchen drawer, rusted but still functional. The lock gave way with a reluctant click, and the door swung open, releasing a gust of stale, cold air. The attic was a time capsule of forgotten things: old trunks, a rusted crib, a dressmaker's dummy draped in yellowed fabric. A single rocking chair sat in the center of the room, its wood warped with age, and it was moving, back and forth, though no one had touched it. Lily let out a nervous laugh. "Wind, right?" But the attic window was shut tight. Then she gasped. "Look, a footprint in the dust, too large to be human, with long, claw-like toes." Before we could react, a whisper came from the shadows, a voice that wasn't ours. "You shouldn't have come back." We ran. Back downstairs, Dad's hands shook as he rummaged through his bag. "Where's the gun cabinet key?" I realized. The cabinet stood in the corner of the living room, its glass front revealing the rifles inside. Useless without the key. We searched frantically, tossing aside couch cushions and digging through drawers. Then Lily pointed at the floor. The key lay in a puddle of something dark and sticky. Above it, the closet door creaked open on its own. Inside, the walls were covered in scratches. Deep, frantic, like something had been trapped. And at the bottom, barely visible in the dim light, a child's handprint. Night fell quickly in the woods. We barricaded ourselves in the master bedroom, pushing the dresser against the door. Dad clutched the rifle, though none of us knew if bullets would work against whatever was in this house. The noises started soon after. Knocking, scratching, breathing. Lily clutched my arm as something dragged itself along the hallway outside our room. Then, a child's voice, but not Lily's, giggled from inside the wall. "I like your sister." I woke to Lily shaking me. "Look," she whispered, pointing at the window. A figure stood outside, too tall, too thin. Its head tilted slowly, watching us. Then the power came back on. The thing was gone, but the window was locked from the inside. At dawn, we ventured into the basement. Grandpa's journal lay on his old desk, buried under piles of yellowed newspapers. The last entry: "It's not an animal. It's not human. It gets in through the walls. Do not let it imitate you." A screech echoed from above, Lily's voice. "But wrong. Help me. It's got me." But Lily was right beside me. The pantry door shuddered under the weight of something massive. Wood splintered as clawed fingers pried through the cracks, peeling back the plywood like tissue paper. "Back door!" Dad hissed, shoving Lily and me toward the kitchen. We ran blindly through the dark house, our flashlight beams swinging wildly. Behind us, the thing moved with unnatural speed, wet, slapping footsteps alternating between floor and ceiling. Lily screamed as something snagged her hair. I turned just in time to see it, a pale, emaciated arm stretching impossibly long from the hallway shadows, its fingers tangled in her blonde strands. I grabbed a cast-iron skillet from the stove and swung. The impact made a sickening crunch, like breaking hollow bones. The arm recoiled with a shriek that sounded almost human. "Go!" Dad roared, firing his rifle blindly behind us. The muzzle flash illuminated the creature for half a second, a nightmare of stretched skin and too many joints, crawling along the walls like a grotesque insect. We burst through the back door into the moonlit yard. The woods were only 20 yards away. Safety. Then the screaming started. Not ours. It's. From inside the house, it began mimicking our voices in perfect harmony. Dad's commands, Lily's sobs, my panicked breathing, all twisted together into a cacophony of terror. "Don't listen." Dad gasped as we reached the tree line. He fumbled for the gasoline can strapped to his backpack. "It's trying to." The living room window exploded outward. The thing launched itself through the glass, shards glittering around its grotesque form as it landed in a crouch. Its mouth unhinged like a snake's, revealing rows of needle-thin teeth. And then it spoke, in Mom's voice, "Dead 5 years from the car accident. You left me here with it." Dad threw the gasoline can at the creature's feet. The liquid splashed up its pale legs, but it didn't flinch. Those black eyes tracked us with reptilian focus as it took one jerky step forward, then another. "Now!" Dad shoved the matches into my hands. My fingers trembled so badly that the first 2 matches died. The creature tilted its head, emitting a wet chuckle from deep in its throat. Lily grabbed my wrist. "Let me." The 3rd match flared to life. Time slowed. The creature lunged, its limbs extending like taffy. Lily dropped the match. Fire raced up the gasoline trail with a whoop that knocked us backward. The creature shrieked as flames engulfed it, but the sound wasn't pain, it was laughter. High-pitched and giddy, like a child on a swing set. We ran as the cabin became a bonfire behind us. At the tree line, I dared to look back. The thing stood perfectly still in the inferno, its burning flesh sloughing off to reveal something glistening and black underneath. Its jaw unhinged again, and this time the voice that came out was mine. "I'll find you in the city lights." Then the roof collapsed, swallowing it whole. We didn't stop running until we reached the car. As Dad fumbled with the keys, Lily grabbed my arm. Her eyes were wide with dawning horror. "Your backpack," she whispered. I shrugged it off. The fabric was damp. Not from sweat, from blood, and sewn crudely into the fabric with what looked like human hair. A single word: soon. The police called it an accident. A gas leak, they said. A tragic but explainable end to an abandoned property. They didn't question why we'd been there so late, or why we'd brought gasoline. They didn't ask about the scratches on the inside of the pantry door, or the way Lily wouldn't speak for days afterward. The local paper ran a small piece: "Family escapes mysterious cabin fire," with a photo of the charred remains. If you looked closely, you could see something the reporters missed. In the ashes, near what was left of the front porch, a single unburned handprint, too large to be human. We moved across the country after that. Dad drank more. Lily started sleeping with the lights on. And me? I kept Grandpa's journal. Sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I think about the way it waved at us from the trees. Not a threat, a promise. Because 3 months after the fire, Lily called me in the middle of the night, her voice barely a whisper. "It's in my closet," she said. When I got there, her bedroom window was open. Cold air rushed in. And on the floor, in the dust, was a single footprint, too large to be human.